Maplewood Estates, where every blade of grass has an owner. It was a peaceful Saturday morning. I had come to Maplewood Estates, a mid-tier luxury neighborhood, to visit my brother Liam and join a few of his neighbors for a bit of BBQ by the pool. The meat was sizzling, the beer was cold, and I had just unfolded my lounge chair to stretch out when I heard a scream from across the street. "Harold! Harold!" I turned my head. Mr. Harold, probably in his 70s, had collapsed on the sidewalk in front of his own house. His wife, Grace, was sobbing hysterically, shaking him like she could pull him back into the land of the living. I jumped out of my chair and sprinted on my car. There was still a trauma kit in the trunk from my last shift. I grabbed it and ran straight to Harold, dropped to my knees, and checked his pulse. Nothing. No heartbeat, no breath, no pulse. Starting CPR. I shouted at Liam, who was already calling 911, and without waiting for anyone, I placed both hands on Harold's chest and began compressions. 30 compressions. Check. Still no response. 2 rescue breaths. Continue chest compressions. My mind had one single command looping like a siren: keep the blood flowing. Keep the brain alive. And then Linda Granger arrives, with heels and a clipboard. I didn't hear where she came from. All I remember was the clack-clack of high heels hitting concrete, marking every precious second Harold had left. Linda Granger, president of the HOA at Maplewood Estates, marched toward me, clutching her clipboard like a gavel. Dressed in a grey blazer, her face twisted like I had just cancelled her spring festival. Next to her was Kyle Thompson, the self-declared HOA security guard, wearing a black polo, holding a walkie-talkie and scowling like he'd been called to defuse a hostage crisis. "This is a private area," Linda barked. "You are not authorized to perform unregistered medical procedures here." I didn't stop compression. I just said firmly, "I'm a doctor. He's in cardiac arrest. He needs CPR." "I don't see any license on you," Kyle said, stepping closer. "Left breast pocket. ID badge. Please don't interfere." I kept going. 30 compressions. Check. Breaths. Repeat. Linda didn't listen. She pulled out her phone and started dialing. "There's a stranger claiming to be a doctor trespassing on someone's property," she told whoever was on the other end, her tone as calm as if she were ordering a morning baguette delivery. I was dragged off. The victim, Kyle, turned away and muttered something into his radio. Then, out of nowhere, another guy in a matching HOA polo came charging me from the side like a linebacker. I lost my balance, slammed into the grass, head bouncing off the dirt. The left shoulder hit the landscaping stones. They pinned me, 2 hands, tight grip. I struggled, yelling, "He needs help, let me go!" But it was too late. Mr. Harold lay motionless, eyes glazed, lips pale, his final chance, stolen by a clipboard-obsessed HOA. Mrs. Grace screamed, "Please, please don't stop!" I looked at her, heartbroken. He hadn't stopped. They made me stop. When the ambulance arrived, it was already too late. By the time the real paramedics arrived, I was zip-tied, sitting on the curb like a shoplifter. They asked who I was. I showed my badge, but Linda and Kyle had already told them their version. "You're being detained for trespassing and impersonating a medical professional," the officer said as he cuffed me. I was speechless. Numb, just a doctor, trying to save a man's life, tackled by a homeowners association, and was arrested for CPR. I don't remember how long I sat on the patch of grass by the roadside, wrists cuffed, shoulder throbbing, but I remember exactly how it felt inside my head. It wasn't fear. It was the chilling realization that I was being punished. For trying to save a life, just 30 minutes earlier, I'd been holding a pair of tongs, grilling sausages while Liam played country music, and the neighborhood kids splashed in the pool. I thought, hey, maybe Maplewood Estates isn't as bad. As people say, clean, quiet, decent BBQ. Then Harold Bennett collapsed, and not long after I understood why this HOA had earned its reputation for suburban authoritarianism. One backyard party, and a 10-second downfall. My brother Liam had warned me, "Don't let any food drip on the pavement. If HOA sees ketchup in the wrong place, you'll get a citation faster than you can say hot dog." I thought he was exaggerating. But when Linda Granger showed up while I was performing CPR, wearing a charcoal grey suit and heels tapping across the concrete like she was hosting a real estate fashion show, I realized, here in Maplewood, the grass mattered more than a person's life. That's when Liam pulled out his phone. As Kyle and the other HOA polo shirt goon yanked me away from Harold, Liam instinctively started filming, not to go viral, just a reflex from witnessing. Something so absurd it needed proof. The video starts with me shouting, "He's in cardiac arrest." "I'm a doctor." Then Kyle's voice, "You're not allowed to do that here." And then you see me being shoved, hitting the ground, my hand still on Harold's chest. Liam shouted, "My brother is an ER doctor. Who the hell are you?" When does an HOA get to tackle someone during CPR? Mrs. Grace, Harold's wife, screamed, sobbing uncontrollably. I was pinned to the ground, and then Harold stopped breathing for the last time. The ambulance arrived. One breath too late, police showed up alongside the paramedics. They asked me who I was. I showed my ID. I told them I'm Dr. Nate Lawson, emergency physician, certified, licensed in this state. I was performing CPR on a man in cardiac arrest. They didn't listen. They had already heard Linda's version. Linda approached, face as cold as an ice block. He didn't have authorization to operate in this area. And I believe he was being aggressive. Aggressive, I thought, looking down at the handcuffs, the holding room, where I sat in silence with a torn shoulder and a head full of noise. I was taken to the station like some kind of emergency. Services imposter. I wasn't allowed to make a call. No one asked what happened. I just sat there, listening to the sound of typing, the smell of stale coffee, and the quiet, cruel truth. An HOA policy had killed a man. About 4 hours later, another. Officer walked in, graying hair, name tag said Myers. "Hey, Nate, right? I just saw a clip. Looks like you weren't lying." The truth started to leak. From one phone and a Reddit account, Liam's video, showing the entire sequence from my first chest compression to me being pulled away, got posted to Reddit. The user, "You permitted goose dad." In just 3 hours, it hit over 1 million views. The title, "HOA stopped CPR and arrested the medic, man died." The comment section exploded. "I'm done trusting HOAs. What's next? Permits to breathe? Arresting a doctor for saving a life. Welcome to HOA-topia." Someone renames Linda to Lucifer already. It's more fitting. The media smelled blood. A local journalist named Kira Wolf DM'd Liam. Viral X Twitter account posted the clip with the caption, "Breaking. HOA president stops CPR. Man dies." We had to protect the lawn. The Maplewood community split down the middle. Team Linda, still loyal to the bylaw gospel. Everyone else, putting up lawn signs reading, "CPR is not a crime." One homeowner placed a CPR dummy in their front yard with a sign, "This is Bob." Bob needed help, but Linda needed a form. I was released the next morning. No apology, no thank you. Just, "We'll be reviewing this matter further." But outside, the world had already reviewed it. The clip was everywhere. The outrage was boiling. Harold's death was no longer a silent tragedy. It had become a public reckoning. And I knew, right then, this wasn't just my story anymore. This was for everyone who's ever been stopped by an HOA for doing the right thing. You know, I used to think the worst part of being wrongly arrested was sitting in a holding cell, watching the clock tick, with no right to make a phone call. But I was wrong. The worst part is waking up the next morning after being pulled off, a dying man, and seeing your name printed under a letter from the HOA, titled, "Clarifying the Incident at Lot 17. Sounds like someone accidentally watered the wrong lawn. That incident Was someone dying? And lot 17 was the exact spot where I knelt to try to save him. The email that lit the fuse. The letter came from none other than Linda Granger, president of the Maplewood Estates HOA, sent at 3 a.m. Probably right. After watching the video of me getting tackled hit 3 million views on Reddit, maybe she thought, if I respond quickly, I can calm everyone down. Spoiler alert, she calmed absolutely nothing. It began. Dear Maplewood residents, an unfortunate situation occurred at Lot 17 on Saturday morning. An unidentified individual trespassed on private property and engaged in what appeared to be an unauthorized medical procedure, not cleared by the HOA. What appeared to be a medical procedure? If I didn't know CPR, I'd have assumed I was reading poetry into Harold's chest. And then came the masterpiece. Unfortunately, resident Harold Bennett passed away due to a medical incident. Unrelated to any external interference, the HOA acted to preserve order and ensure privacy. To summarize, I failed to save him. Harold's fault. HOA stopped the CPR for privacy. Cardiac arrest, please submit a rescue request form. The internet, read the letter, and exploded. That letter didn't pour water on the fire. It poured. Gasoline Marcus, my other brother, screenshot the email and reposted it on X or Twitter with the caption, "Stopped a doctor from doing CPR. Man dies. HOA. Not our problem. Humanity 1000. The hashtag "One HOA killed Harold" shot to the trending charts. A meme account posted a still of me being pinned to the ground, captioned, "When you're trying to save a life, but HOA needs to confirm your lawn mowing direction first." Community reactions. Maplewood splits in two. The neighborhood turned into a pressure cooker. Team Linda still worship the bylaws like holy scripture. If anyone can just perform CPR, then what's left of community order? Team Sanity protested with yard signs. CPR, HOA. Don't die here. You'll need a permit to be saved. Linda, this was a human life, not your damn hibiscus bush. One resident, a mechanic naturally, set up a CPR dummy on his lawn with a sign. "This is Bob. Bob passed out. Linda wants him to wait." For HOA approval. Media steps in, and Linda takes the stage less than 48 hours after the video went viral. The local news aired a special, Maplewood controversy. Doctor blocked. During CPR, resident dies. HOA responds. Linda and Kyle, yes, the guy who tackled me, held a press conference in front of the HOA clubhouse. It was the definition of public spectacle. Linda wore a dark blue suit, holding a fresh clipboard, still thick as a TOEIC workbook, flanked by 2 HOA board members. Kyle had swapped his polo for a blazer, ditched the radio, but kept the dark sunglasses like he was auditioning to guard a washed-up B-list celebrity. Linda began, "At Maplewood Estates, HOA, we prioritize safety and protocol above all. In the Lot 17 situation, our internal security acted swiftly to prevent impersonation or further danger to residents. Unverified medical actions can lead to unpredictable consequences." A reporter cut in, "Are you suggesting CPR is a dangerous act?" Linda blinked. Kyle stepped up, speaking, "We couldn't verify the identity of the individual. He was in plain clothes and hadn't presented credentials." At that moment, another reporter held up a printed screenshot from the video, a clear shot of my face, my hospital badge, and my ID swinging around my neck. Here he is, wearing ID, identifying himself as a doctor. Reporters started murmuring and snapping photos. The air was boiling. Linda tried to remain composed. It was an emergency. Unfortunately, Mr. Harold passed due to a health condition, not due to any action or inaction on our part. She didn't mention I was pulled away during CPR. Didn't mention I was handcuffed, just kept repeating misunderstanding and not our fault. Then came the collapse. One email to end it all less. Then 3 hours after the press conference, an internal HOA email was leaked, sent by a former board member to the press. It was from Linda, dated 2 days before the incident. A direct quote from the email. I'm tired of strangers showing up trying to play hero. We need to make an example. Let them know Maplewood is not to be messed with. Make an example by de-blocking CPR. Social media detonated. New hashtags emerged. Clipboard criminal. Your Maplewood mayhem. Let them save lives. Residents printed copies of the email and pasted them all over the clubhouse. Someone spray-painted graffiti. On the front, heroes wear scrubs, not clipboards. I didn't need to defend myself. Linda had signed her moral indictment. All the excuses, spin, and passive voice deflections collapsed, crushed by one email, one video, and one woman who loved authority so much she couldn't see she was ripping her community apart. And the wild part, they still didn't know it was about to get worse, because that's when Jessica Albright, a nationally known civil rights attorney, called me and said, "Nate, if you're ready, I think we can turn this into a historic case for every HOA in America." Part 4. The dark side of the HOA and the first legal bullet fired. I used to think that if you had video footage, clear evidence, and community support, justice would naturally follow. But after watching Linda Granger deliver a speech as smooth as a freshman PR student's essay, and Kyle Thompson standing there like a sunglasses-wearing garden gnome, I realized evidence is useless if people pretend not to see it. And that's exactly why I needed something stronger than a video: the law. The phone call that made the HOA tremble. The next morning, while I was eating cereal in my brother's kitchen, my phone rang. The caller, Jessica Albright, a civil rights attorney, famous in activist circles for winning a case against a luxury apartment chain that denied access to a man with a guide dog. I had no idea why she was calling me, but when I picked up, her voice was calm and direct. "Hi, Nate. I've seen the footage. I'm not calling to ask if you want to sue. I'm calling to ask, how hard do you want to sue?" The meeting and the plan to crack the HOA's spine. Jessica wasn't like the TV lawyers. No tight dress, no cat-eye glasses, just a woman in a simple blazer, hair tied back, with eyes so sharp Linda would probably resign on sight. She sat across from me, opened her laptop and played Marcus's video. I watched it from beginning to end, without a word. When it reached the moment Kyle slammed me into the grass, my shoulder hitting the rocks, Jessica exhaled. Good, clear, unforgivable. Then she flipped to a legal outline. She spoke fast, precisely, with zero fluff. The lawsuit would include obstruction of emergency medical assistance, unlawful detainment, physical harm, emotional distress, wrongful death by negligence. I asked, "Do you think we can win?" She looked up, half-smiled, like it was the dumbest question only an HOA member would ask. "I don't sue to lose, I sue to teach." Step 1, press conference, going public with the lawsuit. 3 days later, I stood behind Jessica on the steps of City Hall. There were more reporters than at a royal wedding. I stood beside Marcus and Mrs. Grace, Harold's wife. She held a photo of her husband. Her eyes were red, but no longer shaking. Just steely. Jessica took the mic. "No pleasantries, just this. We're filing a $15 million lawsuit against the Maplewood Estates HOA. The claims include obstruction of legal medical care, unlawful detainment, and indirectly contributing to the death of a citizen. We're not suing for injuries. We're suing because someone died, because of arrogance and a rulebook used in the wrong place at the wrong time." Reporters swarmed. One asked, "Do you think the HOA has any legal standing?" Jessica gave one word: "No." The HOA responds with another spectacular misstep. Instead of laying low and lawyering up, the HOA chose the only possible move that made them look even worse. They released a press statement. Key excerpt: "We reject the accusations. The HOA maintains the right to regulate conduct and services within the neighborhood. All actions taken were in line with internal safety protocols. And the highlight? We remain concerned that the individual who performed CPR may have been impersonating a medical professional. Even after the video, even after the ID badge visible, they still claimed, "I wasn't a doctor." I nearly spilled. My noodles reading it. Marcus nearly collapsed laughing. "What, do they think your hospital ID is a cosplay prop now?" Then came the bombshell from the past. It wasn't just Jessica digging into their history. The entire internet joined in. A Twitter user named HOLeaks reposted a buried news article from 2 years ago. Maplewood resident injured after falling off a ladder while putting up Christmas lights. HOA delayed ambulance access because the vehicle was not pre-registered 24 hours in advance. The incident had been hushed. Not anymore. Jessica immediately added it to the case filing with this note: "This was not a one-time mistake. This is a dangerous systemic pattern of obstructing emergency response." Inside the HOA, the ice starts to crack. A board member named Rachel Lynn resigned. Her leaked resignation email included, "I can't keep working with people who prioritize landscaping over lives. I'm sorry to the community." 2 more members stepped down shortly after. Linda, still silent. Kyle vanished from the clubhouse. One source said he was on a wellness break in a relative's remote cabin. No signal, no accountability. On the Maplewood Facebook group, a resident asked, "If I collapse in my yard, who'll save me? Or do I need a permit first?" At 5 p.m. that day, Jessica officially submitted the 83-page lawsuit to the county court, included in full Marcus's video footage. Photos of my shoulder bruising, a statement from Mrs. Grace, Linda's internal email, and the 2021 ambulance blocking incident. I signed the last page, and as I put pen to paper, I didn't think about money. I didn't think about fame. I thought of Harold, who might still be alive, and I thought about every person in every neighborhood who once believed the rules would protect them, until those same rules turned into their death sentence. I once heard a quote, "True power isn't how loud you can shout, it's when you stay silent and an entire community speaks for you." I didn't shout, I just tried to save a life. And a week later, dozens of houses in Maplewood Estates had banners hanging out front, "You don't need approval to save a life." The HOA lost control to ordinary people. At first, just 3 houses put up signs, then 12, then 24. Eventually, the entire neighborhood looked like a protest beach. Handmade banners in marker, industrial-grade vinyl prints, even projection lights. One house wallpapered their garage door with Linda's face, plus a cartoon mouth that moved automatically and said, "Resident not breathing? Please submit HOA CPR form before cardiac activity ceases." Every evening, residents began gathering outside the clubhouse, not to yell, but to teach each other CPR. One guy brought a CPR dummy and placed it right in the middle of the HOA lawn. The sign read, "This is Bob. Bob didn't file a form, but Bob still deserves to live." Inside, the HOA meeting becomes a civil trial. The HOA board, once the untouchable upper echelon of the community, handing out fines like Halloween candy, was now surrounded by the very residents who had once stayed quiet. This year's annual meeting wasn't about grass length, fence paint, or unpaid shrub trimming fees. It became a full-blown reckoning. Linda showed up trying to look composed. With her was Kyle, finally showing his face. No polo, no radio. Just a wrinkled suit and the look of background character number 3, emotionally defeated dad, from a mid-tier drama series. Linda began reading from a pre-written statement, probably crafted by a very nervous HOA lawyer. "I understand the community's pain, but I stand by the fact that all actions taken by myself and Kyle were within the scope of HOA regulations." She didn't get to finish. An elderly man stood up, slammed his cane on the ground and shouted, "What rule lets you block a rescue? What bylaw lets you decide who lives or dies? The room erupted to applause. Linda turned pale. Kyle stepped back. Residents begin speaking. Years of HOA abuse exposed. One by one, people are standing ready to speak. A mother shared that last year. Her son fell off his bike and scraped his knee. A neighbor came over to help bandage him. Days later, they received a violation letter for unauthorized entry. An elderly couple recounted how they once called an ambulance for a breathing emergency. The HOA later complained the sirens disturbed nap time. A young woman said she was fined for air-drying a blanket in a color not compliant with the community palette. Then Marcus, my brother, stood up. He didn't say a word. He just hit play. The video of me being tackled during CPR filled the screen. You could hear the gasps, the shouts, the crushing grip of a clipboard dictating who gets to live. And then a hammer blow from inside the board itself. As the room settled, a board member, Mr. Daniel Reese, the oldest among them, stood. He removed his name tag, placed it on the table and said, "I can't sit on a board that values rules over life. I resign, and I support the lawsuit. Not because I hate Linda, but because I hate what power has turned her into." Linda's eyes went wide. Kyle stared at the floor. A female board member stood up next. Then another. The final nail. Internal files leaked and delivered. None of this would have detonated the way it did if not for Rachel Lynn. She was the HOA's former secretary, the one quietly collecting emails, meeting minutes, and internal chats. A zipped file was sent to the court, the press, and every resident. Its contents? An email from Linda saying, "We need to tighten restrictions and shut down these resident troublemakers." A monitor list that included my name and Mrs. Grace's. Meeting notes that said, "We need to make the doctor look like a threat. Use media pressure if needed." The HOA fractures, cracks, turn into collapse. Within 24 hours of the leak, 3 more board members resigned. Linda? Vanished. She hasn't appeared at any event since. Kyle was filmed moving out in the middle of the night, dragging suitcases to a pickup truck. On his back, a sticker someone had slapped on his coat, CPR blocker. The video of him fleeing the neighborhood, silently under street lamps, went viral in minutes. And then the official demand: dissolve the HOA new resident committee, led by Mr. Daniel, Mrs. Grace, and Marcus, drafted a petition, the request to dissolve the Maplewood Estates HOA. Its mission to completely dismantle the current HOA structure, to replace it with a volunteer council with no fining powers, no emergency interference, and no more Linda on the throne of her clipboard kingdom. Harold's death had been a shock, but it woke up an entire neighborhood. The same people who once stayed quiet, who once bowed their heads, had risen. Linda is no longer HOA president. Kyle is no longer the self-proclaimed security guy, and the HOA, now it's just 3 letters on a gate, soon to be taken down. No one ever imagined that one day a county courthouse would have to rent extra chairs, not for a serial killer, not for $1 million fraud scandal, but for the trial of an organization that once believed a clipboard and a rule book could override death itself. I was a witness, not a victim. I didn't walk into court as the accused. I wasn't someone to be pitied. I stood as a man who had knelt to save a life and got handcuffed for doing it right. Jessica, my lawyer, entered like a general entering battle. No shouting, no grandstanding, just her gaze and an 8-centimeter thick binder. That included Marcus's video footage, photos of my bruised shoulder and scraped forehead, medical report confirming CPR was interrupted, testimony from Mrs. Grace, and most damning of all, the leaked Linda email. We need to make an example out of these anti-HOA types. The witnesses and a story reassembled piece by piece. Witness 1. Me. I recounted everything from BBQ by the pool, to Harold collapsing, to the moment I was yanked off his chest mid-compression. The courtroom was dead silent. The HOA's lawyer asked, "Are you certain you're a licensed emergency physician?" Jessica stood, placed a stack of documents on the bench. My medical license, hospital ID, and high-res photos of me wearing the badge during CPR. The judge raised an eyebrow. The HOA's lawyer quietly sat down. No further questions. Witness number 2. Mrs. Grace. Her voice was hoarse, but every word punched through the courtroom. I saw my husband open his eyes and then close them again after the man trying to save him was dragged away like a criminal. They didn't ask me. They didn't look at me. They just screamed, "Trespassing." But Harold was a man, not a lawn. One female juror reached for a tissue. Jessica didn't need to add a thing. Witness number 3. Emergency medicine expert. The chief physician from the city hospital took the stand. In cardiac arrest, every second of interrupted CPR decreases survival chances by 10%. In the footage, the patient went 30 full seconds without compressions. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't negligence, it's damage. The HOA's defense. As flimsy as a faded fence their lawyer tried, my client acted out of concern. They hadn't verified the identity of the person performing CPR. It was a safety protocol. Jessica didn't flinch. She pointed to the projection screen, where I was clearly seen wearing a badge, performing CPR, and yelling, "I'm a licensed doctor. Call 911 now." Then Jessica turned to the jury. Is that unverified? Or is that just willful blindness? No, one answered, but I saw them nod. The moment of reckoning. Linda Granger takes the stand. Linda wore a dark suit, hair slicked back, face made up. But her eyes, they had lost all authority, just worry and desperation. She said, "I acted according to HOA policies. I meant no harm. I thought the person could be dangerous." Jessica asked, "Did you look at Mr. Harold as he lay unresponsive?" Silence. "Did you ask his wife if she needed help?" Still silence. Jessica pulled out a printed copy of the infamous email, the one about setting an example, and held it up. "Did you write this?" Linda looked and then lowered her head. "Yes." The courtroom went still, like a morgue. The final blow. Kyle, the security guard, refuses to answer. Kyle was called to the stand. His face was pale, shirt collar crumpled, tie askew. Jessica asked, "Do you recall pulling me off a dying man?" "Nothing." "Do you hold any form of security license? Any medical training?" "Still nothing." "Do you understand what interrupting CPR can do?" He muttered, "I was following orders." Jessica nodded. "And someone died as a result of those orders." Closing argument. Jessica faced the jury. "This is not just a case about regulations. It's about the right to live. About how a dying man was denied a chance at survival, not by fate, but by ego, by authoritarianism, by something that calls itself a homeowners association, but acts like it's above the law. If we let this pass today, tomorrow anyone could be blocked from doing the right thing. Today we're not just judging an HOA, we are judging a system where wrongdoers wear suits and carry clipboards. I looked around the room. Mrs. Grace squeezed my hand. Marcus stood behind me, gripping my shoulder. Me, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. I just felt light, like I had just given CPR to justice, and its heartbeat had returned. You know a trial is on fire when the entire courthouse perimeter must be barricaded just to keep the crowds from live streaming too close to the building. On Judgment Day, I walked into the courtroom feeling unlike any shift I've ever worked. No adrenaline, no blood, no sirens, just a silence weighted like stone. The jury returns and every eye turns. The judge entered. Gavel down. The jury filed because they were walking into a room with a ticking bomb. The foreman stood, verdict in hand, on the charges of obstruction of lawful medical aid, unlawful detainment, causing severe harm resulting in death. His voice didn't shake, but the room held its breath. We find the defendant, the HOA board of Maplewood Estates, guilty. The court orders damages $10 million to the individual plaintiff, Dr. Nate Lawson, and $5 million to the family of Mr. Harold Bennett. Furthermore, the court recommends referral to the State Attorney's Office for potential criminal prosecution of individuals, Linda Granger and Kyle Thompson. The room exploded. Like New Year's Eve, Mrs. Grace, Harold's widow, let out a long exhale. Marcus shouted, "Yes!" like our home team had just won the World Cup. Me? I said nothing. I looked up at the courtroom ceiling where fluorescent lights flickered slightly and thought, Mr. Harold, today part of your justice came back. Linda crumbles. Kyle vanishes. As soon as the verdict landed, Linda collapsed into her chair like someone had pulled her plug. Mascara smudged, hands trembling, mouth muttering something. Probably, "This can't be happening." Court officers approached immediately, preparing to escort her for further questioning at the state prosecutor's office. She didn't resist, just cried. Her first tears since all of this began. As for Kyle, absent. Rumors flew that he'd fled the state, leaving behind only one email. "I was just following orders." The media reaction was seismic moments. After the verdict, social media went ballistic. CNN, unprecedented verdict. HOA loses lawsuit for blocking CPR. Reddit are heroes. Man handcuffed while saving a life, just one. Twitter X, top hashtags, CPR wins, HOA's not above life. On TikTok, one creator reposted the verdict over Eye of the Tiger. Clip, me walking out of the courthouse, smiling faintly, shaking hands with Mrs. Grace. Caption, from criminal to champion. Community response, more than a lawsuit, a movement begins. That very night, 4 other HOAs across the country faced resident demands for transparency. 2 of them dissolved within 72 hours. A state lawmaker in Ohio released a statement. It's time to examine the unchecked powers of HOAs. These organizations have become unregulated mini-governments. A bill was introduced, the Emergency Aid Protection Act, banning any organization from interfering with life-saving actions. I got a letter from the state governor. 1 week later, I opened my mailbox and found an envelope sealed with red wax. Dear Dr. Nate Lawson, your courage and determination didn't just defend the honor of your profession. You reminded this country that no one, not an HOA, not law enforcement, not even elected leaders, can place themselves above human life. On behalf of our state, thank you, Governor, a memorial for Harold. With no clipboards, only flowers, Mrs. Grace held a remembrance ceremony for Harold. No suits, no bylaws read aloud, just a sunny garden. An oak tree planted on the sidewalk where Harold collapsed, and a wooden sign that read, "Here, a heart stopped." But the conscience of a community woke up. Kids blew bubbles, neighbors shared sandwiches, no HOA speeches, no clipboards, just humans, real, soft and kind. And me, I went back to work, still an ER doctor, but now carrying more than a stethoscope. I carry a story. I tell it during CPR trainings, in webinars, on podcasts, in med schools. Not to say I was right, but to say, if you see someone in need, help them. Don't wait for permission. Don't let clipboards kill compassion. Some battles don't begin with gunfire. They begin when someone falls and someone else chooses to act. Harold is gone, but he did not die in vain, because that death awakened a community and buried a corrupt idea called HOA power. The verdict was delivered. The media cheered. Social media. A slow-burning explosion. But reality? Reality was this. When the HOA fell, it wasn't just dust that settled, it was the layer of dust that had long covered human decency, trust, and kindness, finally lifting too. The HOA dissolved. No more headquarters, no more fines. 1 week after the trial, the Maplewood Estates Homeowners Association sign was gone. No official memo. No removal order, just two neighbors on ladders early one morning quietly unscrewing the letters and chuckling as they did. Linda, still missing. Kyle, still AWOL. And that mighty clubhouse, once the clipboard empire, now empty, dusty, just a few wooden chairs and a ceiling fan whining in circles. And then a new sign appeared on the clubhouse door, a single sheet of paper taped to the glass. We're turning this space into a community CPR and medical aid center. No fees, no fines, just gratitude, and a promise that no one will ever die needlessly. Again, signed, the residents of Maplewood, no permission needed. The community rebuilt itself. In the most unexpected way, people expected chaos after the HOA vanished. Weeds everywhere, collapsed fences, trash tornadoes. Instead, residents volunteered to mow lawns for the elderly. Kids set up lemonade stands to raise money for defibrillators. A group hosted free CPR classes every weekend in the park. The same park, where gatherings were once banned without HOA approval. No one pays resident dues anymore. They just give a little human decency. One line that changed. Everything Mrs. Estelle, age 76, was the first person ever fined by the HOA for hanging wind chimes that were too noisy. She was invited to speak at the opening of the new CPR center. She said just one thing: "I've lived here for 30 years, and this is the first time I've heard laughter without a violation notice following it." The whole crowd clapped. Some cried, "Me?" I stood next to Marcus, biting my lip so I wouldn't shake. Linda's house sold off, HOA assets seized. Linda's pristine white mansion, with its perfectly measured fence, was seized and listed to pay the court-ordered damages. Who bought it? A first-generation immigrant family, first-time homeowners. They posted a handwritten sign on the door: "New house, new beginning, no clipboards, just kindness." And Kyle, rumor has it he tried launching a YouTube channel about neighborhood security. His first video got so many dislikes that YouTube disabled comments entirely. Me, I returned to work with a new role, still a doctor, still saving lives. But now, I'm also the guy with the true story. I travel and share the Maplewood story. One man collapsed, one CPR attempt, one clipboard, one community transformed. My CPR workshops are always full. People aren't just learning chest compressions anymore. They're learning how to be human. Podcast Emergency Exit. Nothwell One Overnight Marcus, my brother, launched a podcast called Emergency Exit. Episode 1. The HOA Saga. His voice, full of wit and sharp timing. Background music dramatic enough to score a courtroom drama. Guests, me, Mrs. Grace, the trauma physician. Even the new security guard, one with an actual license. The episode hit #1 on Apple Podcasts in the Society and Culture category overnight. One sign, one mural, and a reminder that never gets old. Right where Harold collapsed, a small wooden sign was installed on the sidewalk, carved by hand. No embellishments. Here, someone died because help was blocked, and an entire community came back to life because it refused to let that happen again. Next to it, a wall mural painted by the neighborhood kids. Me performing CPR. Mrs. Grace beside me, holding my hand. And on the far edge, Linda running away, clipboard trailing smoke, at the bottom scrawled in crooked letters: "No one has the right to block kindness." No HOA should stand above the human heart. People still ask me, if you had to do it all over again, would you save him knowing you'd get handcuffed? I don't even need to think. I didn't save him because I had permission. I saved him because he deserved to live. And if I hadn't done something, I wouldn't deserve to be called a doctor. Maplewood was shattered, but when did they rebuild? They didn't build a new HOA. They built something stronger than bylaws, stronger than clipboards. They rebuilt trust. I used to think the most precious thing I'd ever do in life was save someone, but I was wrong. More precious than saving a life is when you save one person, and then an entire community learns how to save each other. One morning, months later, the alarm rang again. I was making coffee at the ER station. Phone rang. A 17-year-old collapsed from heat stroke during football practice at the local high school. No heartbeat for 30 seconds. We rushed out. I grabbed the AED, jumped from the rig, ready to run in. But when I arrived, I froze. On the field, beside the unconscious boy, was a little girl, hands perfectly placed, compressing like a pro. She was 11. She looked up at me, but never broke rhythm. I counted 30, she said. I saw your video. I memorized it. Her name was Mia, Grace's granddaughter, Harold's granddaughter. The boy's heartbeat returned. And mine almost broke. We were shocked once. Rhythm resumed. The boy lived. No brain damage. Woke up 15 minutes later. I turned to Mia. She gave a soft smile, pulled out a tri-folded sheet from her pocket, a printed CPR guide with my face on. I kept it to study, she said. Grandma told me, don't wait for permission to save a life. I couldn't speak. I just bowed my head. And in that moment, I heard a heartbeat, not the boy's, but a new generation's. The story went global. From one HOA to the nation, footage of Mia spread like wildfire, shared by hospitals, medical schools, even the American Red Cross. One comment read, when a child knows how to save a life because she saw adults be stopped from doing it, it's time to change everything. Your YouTube channel, HOA Patrol, released a special episode titled, When the HOA is Gone, the People Who Truly Matter Finally Show Up. The video hit 4 million views in just 72 hours. State Congress passed Nate's Law. 6 months after the verdict, the state governor signed a new bill, Nate's Law, the Emergency Aid Protection Act. The law states, anyone who obstructs lawful medical aid, regardless of authority, will face criminal charges. All residential communities, including HOAs, must install AEDs and host regular CPR training. I was invited to speak at the signing. I said, I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted that if another Harold collapses, the person next to him won't look around. They won't wait. They'll just do what's right immediately. One final email. From the last person I expected one rainy afternoon. I received an email, no sender name, just one line. I was wrong. I have no clipboard now and nowhere to hide. But I hope you know, even if too late, I finally saw what I did. Linda, I don't know if it was real. I don't know where she is. But I read it and I stayed silent. Because sometimes silence is the perfect closing bell. Maplewood. No more HOA, but something much stronger. One weekend I walked through the old neighborhood. No HOA signs. No one snooping around to check fence paint. Just children laughing. An elderly woman teaching CPR with a dummy named Walter. A man reading by the oak tree beside a wooden plaque that reads, "Don't wait for permission to do the right thing." Some stories end with a headline. This one ends with a heartbeat. Harold is gone. But because of him, a little girl learned CPR. A child acted. A community awakened. A nation began to ask, how many more HOAs are standing? At the chest of someone dying, holding a clipboard instead of helping? And me, I'm still a doctor, still the guy who got handcuffed for doing the right thing. But now I'm doing something else too, a living reminder that even among twisted laws, compassion always finds a way. This is where the story closes. But if you've ever lived near a Karen or a Kyle or a Linda, then you already know the patrol never really ends. Save lives when you can. And if the HOA gets in the way, let the clipboard hit the ground.